this comes from Pia Mellody, again, out at the Meadows in Wickenburg. When we look at how most of the time when people are arguing, when you're arguing with your partner or with a friend or with a family member, we're really arguing over how we see the same event, right? There's an event that happens and we both see it differently. And if what I try and teach my clients, especially in my couples therapy, is that you're arguing over reality. And the realization is that we all see similar events differently. We all have a different reality. Now, and I'm not talking about like consensus reality, like that's a white ceiling. Like if we're disagreeing on that's a white ceiling, then we're dealing with different pathology. What I'm talking about is basic stuff that we argue about. You said this, I saw you do that, right? So when you talk about how do we create a reality, and again, this comes from Pia Mellody, it comes from this sequence of events. Our senses, our ears, eyes, nose, mouth, taste, touch, all of that stuff, our senses, we bring in incoming data, what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch. Then our mind gives meaning to that data. Okay, so our thought gives meaning to that data. And then the meaning that we give to that data creates a physiological sensation in our body that is called an emotion. And then that physiological energetic sensation in our body we call an emotion is typically preceded by a behavior. So all of those, senses, meaning, emotion, behavior, is our reality. I see something and I hear something and it comes in and I make meaning of it. That meaning that I'm giving it comes from my historical conditioning. So let's say if when I was younger, I was in a relationship and my girlfriend cheated on me. And that happened maybe 3 or 4 times through my childhood, my adolescent years, where somebody was unfaithful to me. And now I see my partner doing a similar behavior, being on the phone, texting somebody. I might give meaning to her texting based on my historical condition of being hurt. So automatically, my partner's texting, she's not doing anything wrong, and now the meaning I'm giving to her texting is she's going to cheat on me. That creates an emotion of fear, an emotion of maybe anger, and then my emotion of anger and fear causes me to kind of strike out at her and yell at her for texting somebody and making me a little bit jealous or a little bit paranoid. So again, my reality is created based on my historical conditioning. The thing is that we are all conditioned differently. From the day we were conceived to this moment, everything that's happened past that has been a part of my conditioning on how I'm going to meet this moment. And it is really unfair of me, and I do this because I'm human. It is very unfair of me, though, to sit here and argue reality because my wife sees it differently than I do. Of course she sees it differently than I do. She has a different life experience than I do revolving this context. Again, we're not talking about that's a white ceiling. We're talking about these nuanced things that most couples argue over. I always talk about this idea of understanding without judgment. Love is understanding without judgment. And what I mean by that is if I really want to understand you and not judge you, then I have to recognize that you see this event maybe differently than I do, and you're allowed to, instead of me trying to get you to validate the way I see it. As long as I'm confident in the way I see it, and I can give you grace to see it the way you see it, then maybe there's some common ground there, and I can go, makes sense why you would see it that way based on, where you come from and what you've experienced. That makes a lot of sense. That's not the way I intended it, but it makes sense that you would feel that way. And when we talk about how do I get to this place where I allow somebody to have a different reality than me, well, I have to first recognize where my reality is coming from. And I have to do the work and create the environment within me to say, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and these are the behaviors I want to change, but I'm kind of conditioned to behave this way, and I want to change that behavior. And if I can give myself grace, give myself validation, normalize what I do, and give myself some acceptance, then I'm probably going to do the same thing for you. If I'm hard on myself and I judge myself, then I'm probably going to judge you. One way that, again, Pia Mellody talked about how to communicate this is we talk about this is what I'm experiencing. So I don't blame you for what's happening. What I do is I say, when I saw you come home late the other night from dinner. So what I saw, the meaning I gave to that, what I made up about that is that you were lying dead in a ditch somewhere after a car accident. And about that, I felt a lot of fear, and now I'm feeling anger and shame and pain. What I'm not doing is saying, where the hell were you last night? You came home late. I was freaking crazy thinking that you were dead, right? That's an attack. What I want to do is explain to you how I'm creating my reality and see if it matches up with yours, and then give you the grace for you to do the same thing. A lot of times we're not going to see it the same way. That's okay. We don't have to see it the same way, but we want to be heard. We want to be validated. We want to be understood. And this is a great way to start that.